Hey, you. Welcome to Home to Me, a podcast where we lovingly pry ourselves away from group chats, calendar invites, and the guilt of saying no. Spoiler alert, you are not the emergency contact for the universe. Guys, today we're going to talk a little bit about my love of calendars. So, a long time ago, I fell in love with a calendar. I just love having a calendar. Even better at my job, my calendar is like virtual, it's online, part of my EHR thing, and it's the best. It runs my life. I am obsessed. I don't know how people survived before they had electronic calendars. Like, I'm obsessed. I also love a full calendar. I don't know what it is about a full calendar. Probably why I love my job, because I get to see all my stuff, like all my client sessions, and they're exactly like an hour block. It's so satisfying to my brain. I like to look at it and feel like, yeah, I'm busy. Like, I'm going to accomplish so much this week, or look back at the week and be like, oh my gosh, look at all the stuff I did. I like to use my calendar as a way to like hype myself up. But you know what has been life-changing for me about my calendar is adding things that are just for me and seeing them as a part of my work week. So even if there's no way in hell I would forget this thing, even if it's late at night on a Friday when I'm not seeing clients and like I wouldn't necessarily need to block that time off so that nobody else takes it, I block it off anyway. So things like nail appointments, send a voice note to Amy, who's my best friend, walk to get coffee, stretch, scream into a void. That is literally one of them that's on my calendar right now, just because I knew I was going to have a very busy day. And so I scheduled that time in, not like because I'm actually going to scream into a void, but just because I like to make myself laugh. Yeah. So it's the best for two reasons. One, because I love looking at my calendar and at my week and seeing that I have like a mix of stuff going on. It just gives me a little bit more like peace that I have some times to work, but then also some times with other stuff in it. It makes me feel happy. But I also like looking at it and seeing all the evidence that I'm choosing myself. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Was I always like this? Fuck no. Did I always say yes whenever anybody asked me anything? Yes. No matter what was scheduled for me, no matter what little time I had, if I had a little half an hour time and someone was like, hey, Steph, can we meet to do this? I'd be like, yes. I have 28 minutes that was going to be for lunch, but now it's going to be for this meeting and I'm not going to eat lunch. That was me. No concept of like saying no. And the part of that was also having FOMO. Like, I really had a hard time delaying stuff for myself, being like, oh my gosh, what do they want to talk about? Oh, what if it's this? What if it's this? Okay, I don't want to miss that. And I would schedule it in. Spoiler alert, it's not worth it. Trust me, I did that for such a long time. It just leads to burnout. Don't do that. Schedule yourself time. Lunch also, especially. That's one I still need to learn. Schedule time for yourself. Important. Okay? Anyway, let's talk about why we overcommit. Why do we struggle with boundaries? Why do we struggle with saying no? So today's episode, basically, I realized I didn't even freaking introduce it. Today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about boundaries. Okay? We're going to be talking about why it's difficult for us to say no, why it's difficult for us to set boundaries, what are boundaries, how do we deal with the guilt of saying no, and why do we overcommit and overextend ourselves? When I was younger, in my family, it's still a joke between me and my I've one of four, the third one, who is a brother, about making tea or coffee in my family. Like, every time we would want tea or coffee, what is happening on my screen? Okay, if you see random emojis popping up, I'm so sorry. I don't know what that is, and I have no idea how to turn it off. Anyway, me and my brother, whenever we wanted to make ourselves tea, we would sneak into the kitchen and do it so quietly, because the second somebody else in the house hears the kettle go on, they'll be like, can you make me tea too, please? And it was just like the bane of my existence, because the second they ask, like, the answer is yes, obviously. Like, you're not going to go make yourself tea and then be that person that only makes tea for themselves. So you can't really say no. You can, of course you can, but that's how hard I found it to say no to stuff. Like, I just wanted a cute cup of tea. And this wouldn't have been a big deal if there was only one other person at home, but it was when there was 4 or 5 other people at home. And okay, well, now I might as well just make a teapot full of tea. Or now I have to take out 5 cups and and it takes so long. And I just wanted to make a little cup of tea and go back to my room. And then years later, my brother and I spoke about it one day, and he was like, oh my gosh, I used to do that too. And I was like, okay, good. I'm not the only one that has a really fucking hard time saying no. And also, what is up with having no kettle in America? Do you know the kettles I've bought have been so freaking expensive? And they go on the stove, so they whistle. And like, that's cute. Oh, cute. You have a whistling kettle. Like, how old fashioned of you? But here it's mainly an affordability choice. Okay, I cannot afford an electric kettle in America. Is it just me? Am I looking in the wrong place? Why are your electric kettles so expensive? And why do you never have electric kettles in hotel rooms? Okay, some of us like to drink tea or instant coffee. Okay, not all of us have the patience to measure out and make an entire pot of coffee or like French press. Okay, that's very nice. But like, please, some of us want to drink tea. You guys make tea in weird ways too. Like, you guys use tap water and put it in the microwave. That is like objectively ew, gross. Okay, and I've dedicated my life to a career where I don't judge people, but I will tell you in this area I fail. That's gross. That's not how you make tea. Okay, get a kettle. This is really a first world problem. It's not important at all. I have no idea why I went on this rant. I didn't even know I felt this strongly about tea, but I do. Okay, quick summary. By now, you all know my stance on why people please and why people have a hard time saying no. Plain and simple, it's because we're scared. Scared of letting people down, scared of being selfish, scared of other people being angry at us, scared that the other people will feel hurt or confused, scared that the other person might not be able to do it themselves or do it as well or as efficiently as we are. We're scared to look stupid for saying no. You know, like the tea thing where I would have just felt really dumb if I was like, no, I'm not going to make you tea while I'm like right there making tea. So there's a lot of reasons. Oh, scared of not being liked, scared of being judged. So many reasons that we don't say no and we people please, we don't have boundaries. There's also external validation, which is often tied to being helpful or available to others. So sometimes we grow up learning that there is a very big value attached to how helpful you are to others or how available you are to others. And there's not always the same lesson that like there's a limit to that and you shouldn't do that to your own detriment. I think our parents miss that part of the education and they only teach us about being helpful and being available to others. There's also the cultural aspect. I work a lot with different cultures. And there is a cultural messaging around self-worth and sacrifice. So there's a lot of reasons why I think we tend to overcommit and overextend ourselves and have a hard time setting boundaries and saying no. So I think it's important for us to also talk about what boundaries are and what they aren't. I notice how the word boundaries stresses people out so much. Sometimes when I do family therapy, I can see when that word comes out, it is a scary word to hear for the parents or for the older generations in the family. When they hear it, they're like, what the fuck is a boundary? Families don't put walls up to keep each other out, okay? To keep family out. That's kind of how they feel. I wonder if you can relate to that. Let me know. People also get in their feelings sometimes because boundaries can also feel like a way to control people. So that's another thing that they're not, but it can definitely be interpreted as people set boundaries because they want to control somebody else's behavior. And I will say, there have been times where I've been working with people and I notice that sometimes even the person setting the boundary does set it in a way to control somebody else's behavior. Like that's the intention behind the boundary, is to try to manage how somebody else behaves or how somebody else acts. And that's also not what it is. So it's not a wall. It's also not a control mechanism. We also sometimes want other people to immediately understand, respect, and maintain our boundaries. Like, we have a mindset of they're healthy for me and I need them. And if they upset you, then you're toxic and fuck you. That's kind of the mindset around boundaries, but also not true. Okay. So there are a lot of big feelings around boundaries, namely fear. They're not walls and they don't automatically need to be honored and respected by other people. They won't be. I'm saying they don't be. They won't be. They won't be automatically respected and honored by other people. Boundaries are about honoring yourself, meaning how am I going to act? What am I going to do? What am I going to put up with slash tolerate for myself, not in other people, for myself. I like to think of boundaries as a guidebook for how I'm going to live my life. So my guidebook is called How Do I Want to Live? What kind of friend do I want to be? What kind of relationships work for me? What am I willing to sit in to stay connected to my people? I think those are the questions to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out boundaries and set boundaries. It's all related to how do you want to live your life? It's also not true that saying no is selfish. It's not true that you should always be available if you can help. It's also not true that if you can do it better or if you can see a way to do it better, then you should step in and help, or then you have to take over and do it. That's also not true. All of those kinds of myths about boundaries need to be spoken about, because I think people often assume that boundaries only benefit the person setting the boundary, and that's not true at all. An unboundaried person is not comfortable to be, but it's also not comfortable to be around. So I'm going to say more about that. Stay with me for a second. I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask yourself, and then think for a second about how you would answer. Question 1, who is responsible for your happiness and contentment in life? Question 2, who is responsible for your choices and their consequences? Question 3, who knows you and your life the best? So spoiler alert, the answer to all of those questions is you. And it's important that you ask yourself these questions because the same is true for everybody else. And I think that's what we sometimes forget with boundaries. It's not just beneficial to us to have boundaries. It's also beneficial for the people we are in relationship with, for us to have boundaries and for them to have boundaries. It's all good things. Okay? The reason being that people deserve to be responsible for their own happiness, their own choices, their own consequences, and they deserve to choose what is best for their life and how they want to live it. I don't know if it sounds obvious when I'm saying it, but I think a lot of people forget that, or they don't realize it when they're moving into a place of overfunctioning and overcommitting. It's sometimes because somewhere along the line, they picked up the belief that they somehow are responsible for other people's happiness. They somehow are responsible for the choices and the consequences other people make. And they somehow know better what other people need more than those people. Is this maybe you? Think about it. It used to be me also. Sometimes it still happens. So no judgment if it is. But think about it for a second. Think about who you believe is responsible for happiness, choices, consequences, and who knows people the best. Being a person with boundaries is not necessarily only about protecting yourself. It's not always about protecting yourself. Being a person with boundaries is also your social responsibility to allow others the opportunity to learn self-trust and self-confidence by being allowed to solve their own problems. If I think back to my life, an example is an argument I had with a family member once. And in the past, I would have maybe allowed myself to be yelled at and then been like fuming, of course, afterwards, and like been very angry and dysregulated, but in the moment, not done anything. And this one time I was like, I don't know what came over me this time, but I was like, fuck this. So the door was slammed in my face and I opened it. And I was like, excuse me, you actually cannot speak to me like that in this space and slam the door in my face. That is just not something that is going to happen if we're going to have any kind of relationship. And I don't know where those words came from. I don't know what possessed me that day to do that, but still so proud of if someone had gone in and spoken to this person for me and been like, you need to apologize, blah, blah, blah. If someone had been right there next to me and ran in and they had yelled at this person, yeah, in the moment, would it have felt amazing for me? Of course. But no one did that. I did it. I went back in there. I spoke up for myself. I set a boundary to this person's face that was terrifying for me to do. But I chose myself. And still, I think back and I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so proud of myself. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't step in and help people and protect people and stand up for people. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, think about the moments where you felt the proudest of yourself. Think about the moments where you navigated things by yourself and figured it out and how you felt. And then tell yourself, remind yourself, especially if you're a person who struggles with overcommitting and saying yes and also solving other people's problems and not having boundaries in your relationships. If you're that person, think about how much and how often you take away the opportunity from the people that you love to solve their own problems and leave with that feeling, that confident, amazing feeling of like, I did this. And I feel like some people just as easily could feel very much abandoned in those moments when someone didn't stand up for them. And I will say, in the moment, I probably did feel that. I don't remember that, but I can see how I would have felt pretty abandoned that nobody stood up for me. And that's where I think also we as people have a choice. We have a choice whether we lean into our strength or whether we focus on all the times where we feel weak. And I much prefer to lean into my strength. The time I turned down an amazing job that would financially have helped so much at the time, I knew I would be good at it. I knew that the money would be good. I knew that I would be successful, but I also knew what I wanted to do, and I wasn't prepared to give that up for anything. And that is also a privileged choice that I got to make, which I acknowledge. And it's still one of the choices where I feel like other people would have been like, take the job, like you should take it. That's so stupid. And I didn't. I didn't take it. And I'm still so grateful for myself that I did that. After that decision, I regretted it. I thought that I would have been stuck there and I wouldn't have been able to pursue what I actually wanted to do, which is not true. I would have been able to. I would have just had to do the hard thing and quit when this company's whole thing was loyalty. And I knew myself and I knew that that would be so hard for me. That's another reason why I didn't take the job. But sometimes I look back at that decision, especially afterwards when we were struggling financially. I would think back and say, oh my gosh, you should have taken it. You shouldn't have been so like gung-ho. You could have still done exactly what you did. You would have just had more money. And so that decision in the moment, I was like, I'm following my gut. I'm following my passion. I'm not going to take this job. And afterwards, I regretted it. Again, it was my choice. I made it and I carry the consequences. And even though in that case, it was a choice that I'm not so happy that I made, now it doesn't really matter. But back then, it did matter. It's still a choice I made. And I like that. I like that I have to do that. It taught me a lesson. It taught me something very important. It taught me a new way to think about things. It taught me to pause before I make decisions. It taught me to think about more things than I did think about at that time. Sometimes when we don't set boundaries with the people we love and we step in and we overfunction for them, we take away this opportunity that I'm talking about, this one to learn and to grow and to build self-trust and confidence and resilience. I want you to think about something. The grown-up people of equal opportunity and competence in your life deserve autonomy and sovereignty over their own lives. Okay? The grown-up people of equal opportunity and competence in your life. Sometimes this happens depending on your persuasion as a person, where people are like, see, if we help people that are homeless, we're just enabling them. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I believe at all. I'm saying the grown-up people of equal opportunity and competence, that part is important, in your life, deserve the same autonomy and sovereignty that you have. I mean opportunity in terms of fiscally. And I mean competence in terms of don't have much bigger, horrific things that they have to deal with, okay? Those people, they deserve the chance to make their own decisions. They deserve the chance to learn the lessons of life without us trying to save them and protect them from those lessons. Lessons are good. They're a learning opportunity. Consequences are good. They teach us stuff about ourselves, about the world. These people in your life, they deserve the chance to struggle so that they can learn how strong they are, so that they can have that self-confident, competent, resilient feeling that you only get when you navigate something really difficult. And now, again, I'm going to caveat because I'm sure some people are like, but Steph, we're not assholes. Okay, we care. We can't just leave people in our lives to struggle without supporting them. Yes, I 100% agree. But what is support? Support looks different to taking somebody else's discomfort away or taking their stress away. That's not what support is. Support is being right there next to them, encouraging them. Support is not taking over their responsibilities for their own happiness and their own choices and consequences. Okay, absolutely. Can you take over someone's responsibilities when they need help and help them with their kids? All of that stuff? Yes, absolutely you can. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, it's not taking over their responsibilities over their own life. Save your rescuing for people who don't have equal opportunities and are in actual real danger or need actual help and ask you for it. There's going to be lots of those people. There's going to be lots of opportunities to step in and help people who actually need it. There's going to be lots of times where people that you love are going to come to you and say, please help me. And you're going to have the ability and the desire to help them. Okay, because we're in a community. We take care of one another. That's true. But that's not the same thing as taking over the function of another person or taking responsibility for somebody else's happiness. I often actually get asked as a therapist how I maintain boundaries when people are coming in consistently not okay. New trainees in therapy who are learning how to train ask, how do you not get swallowed up by that desire to step in and help? And the one answer is, it takes practice. The other answer is that I still feel the same feelings. I still feel the pain and I see it and I can experience it in my own body. The difference is that I don't feel the immediate need to take that emotion or feeling or experience away from them. I have the strongest faith that you can do hard things. Okay, Glennon Doyle said that, and whatever she says is true. It's all gold. All gold is the kind of tomatoes, what is it called? Ketchup in South Africa. That just made me giggle. Anyway, everything that comes out of Glennon Doyle's mouth is gold. And she says, we can do hard things. It's true. We can do hard things. Humans are designed to feel. Our bodies, our brains, that's what we were born with, feelings. Do you have a little kid that you're trying to raise? I do. He's 3. He has more feelings than any human being I've ever experienced in my entire life. We're born that way. My kid, I will not let anybody disagree with this. My kid giggled when he was 3 days old in his sleep, okay? Feeling from day one. That's what we're made to do. We don't have to be so scared when we see other people have a feeling. We can just sit there and watch them have a feeling. We can just be like, oh my goodness, I see that you're having a feeling. That looks really hard. Let me hold your hand. Not, oh my gosh, what can I do? What about it? What do we think about this? Let's go do. No, not any of that. Just, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. Trust that your people will ask you if they need help. Trust that your people can tolerate difficult things. Trust that your people can make mistakes, suffer the consequences, and learn something very important, and that you shouldn't step in and take that opportunity away from them. Okay? I'm saying all of this because sometimes when I work with clients about boundaries, just saying you need to have boundaries because you need to preserve your own mental health is not enough. Because a lot of people I notice who are used to overfunctioning, myself included when I was younger, didn't give a fuck about their mental health. It's much more important to them that everybody around them is okay. Much more important to them to solve everybody else's problems. And so it's sometimes not enough to tell you, have boundaries for your own peace. Maybe it's enough cognitively because you're like, yeah, I should really. But to get the feeling in your body, it's not enough to just say that. So trying to think about what boundaries actually also help with on the other side can be a really good motivator to help you to be like, oh, boundaries are not just for me. This is a message not for everybody to take back into your communities. This is a message for the people who have a really hard time with overfunctioning and a really hard time with stepping in when they really should let people learn and grow, even if that person hates it in the moment, even if that person has a really, really hard time in the moment. I'm going to tell you a story at the end of this that's very embarrassing, but it's going to back up what I'm saying about having boundaries. So, how to begin to set boundaries? Start small. Okay, start with calendar blocks. 30 minutes where you just do something for you. Walk, work out, read, stretch, think about your goals, cry, literally whatever. Just do it for you, whatever it is. There's also a lot of power in pause. Okay, practice with me. Let me get back to you on that. Okay, let me think about that. Okay, let me just check. I'll get back to you. Okay, give me an hour and I'll get back to you. Those responses are perfectly fine when somebody asks you for something, or when somebody tells you to do something, or when someone invites you somewhere you don't want to go. Okay? Here are also some phrases you can practice. I'd love to, but I'm at capacity this week. I want to give this the attention it deserves, and I can't do that right now. I need a me day, but have so much fun. And my personal favorite, no thank you. Okay? Practice those sample scripts. Keep them with you. Say them over and over again. And try to use them this week. Is there an emotional fallout from setting boundaries? Yes. Usually, yes. Like we said before, when one part of a system changes, the whole system has to change. So guilt is normal. It's not a red flag that you're being selfish. It's a normal feeling to feel when you're a person who's always overfunctioned and you're now starting to make changes. Yes, you might disappoint people. Yes, you might make people angry. Yes, you might get pushback about yourself. People saying you've changed or what's gotten into you. And that's okay. It's okay for it to be hard. Let it be hard. We can do hard things. And then while it's hard, while you're having a difficult time with it, use that hard feeling, that difficult feeling, as evidence that you are doing something new and something just for yourself. Does that make sense? Like, I think sometimes we feel like we're going to change and then we're going to feel immediately good about it. No, usually no. Change is really hard. It's uncomfortable. But if we can learn to let it be hard, if we can learn, as I advocate all the time, learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, we can see the discomfort as evidence that we're growing and changing. Like in those moments that you feel so bad and you feel so guilty and you keep thinking, oh, I should have gone, or I could have actually helped, or I can't just leave her to deal with that by herself. In those moments when you're thinking that, I want you to think about how hard it is for you not to jump in, not to say yes, not to go. And then I want you to say to yourself, that hard, that feeling is evidence that in that moment, you are choosing yourself. Well done. The hard is evidence of the hard work that you're doing. Good. It should be hard. It being hard means you are growing. Well done. 10 out of 10. Amazing. Fantastic. So I want to share a story with you of a time where I did not set a boundary, but somebody else set a boundary and I had to fucking deal with it. And how that is also one of the biggest growth moments that I've had in my life. If you need more evidence as to why boundaries are important, here it is from the other side. So I met my boyfriend when I was 20 and instantly was in love with him. I saw him from across the room. I was like, I love you. He had a girlfriend. I was seeing someone. So nothing happened, but I was like, I'm going to marry that guy. Like, I think I even told a few of my friends I'm going to marry him. This boyfriend was living in another country. The person that I fell in love with was living in another country. And so I was like, whatever. Anyway, 6 months later, he was back in South Africa. He was single and we started dating. Okay. All my dreams came true. It was magical. So I now, looking back, had some toxic traits as a partner. I was very deep into my anxious attachment style and I felt very quickly rejected. And my response to that was to have an absolute meltdown and be completely dysregulated, so much so that whoever I was with would have to drop everything and come and kind of rescue me through it. That was what I was used to. Not my very first boyfriend, but subsequently. And so this boyfriend too. So a few months in, we have our first big argument. He wants to go out with his friends or his one friend that he hasn't seen in a while. I don't even remember why that hit me hard that day. Super in my feelings about it. Have a complete meltdown. He goes anyway. And I'm texting him while he's there and I'm like, hello, like, are you serious? Are you really just going to go? Blah, blah, blah. He doesn't reply. So I start, or he replies in the beginning a little bit like, yes, like, I just want to see my friend, it's fine. And I start calling. He answers a few times and he's like frustrated at me. And now I'm getting even more angry. And I'm like, how dare you be frustrated? Like, can't you see that I'm so hurt? That was me. Just, this is embarrassing to even say out loud. I don't think I've ever told anybody this except obviously my boyfriend, because he was there, who's now my husband. Eventually, after my phone calls, he turns his phone off. He's like, I'm going to turn my phone off because I just want to hang out with my friend. He turns his phone off. I was like, what? Are people allowed to do that? Like, are you genuinely allowed when I am having an absolute meltdown? Obviously not okay. Are you allowed to just like leave me in my feelings and turn your phone off? Obviously the answer is yes. But at the time I was like, what the fuck is happening? Anyway, go to bed. Not okay. The next morning I wake up. I have, I think, one text from him saying, I'm home safe. Love you. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. I woke up full of embarrassment because I've never had that happen before. Mind you, previously what would have happened is I would have had that kind of meltdown. This is so fucking embarrassing. Anyway, I would have had that meltdown. And then that person would have left. They would have either yelled at me so much that I would have something to be angry about, and then they would later super apologize, or they would have left and come home. We would have had a fight until 2:00 in the morning, and then inevitably the other person would have over apologized to me until I was soothed enough to let it go. And I hate to say that. I know what it sounds like and feel absolutely free to be like, what the fuck? Like, I know that's how I feel about myself too. But, we learn and we grow. So waking up that morning, I was like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I feel like such a fucking idiot. Like, obviously it's not a big fucking deal if he goes with his friend. And like, I love going out with my friends. So what the fuck is my problem? Like, why am I having such a massive emotional crisis about this? Oh, I felt so abandoned because FYI, and this is, my husband listens to these. I'm just going to say it on the podcast out loud to him. You were hard to pin down, bitch. Okay, so I was in my feelings a bit because I was absolutely obsessed with him from day one. And he, he's a normal person. So he liked me a normal amount for 2 months of dating, but was not, I was like ready to marry him the first time I had seen him, like 9 months before that. So I think I was feeling all of those feelings. Anyway, none of that is his shit to have to deal with. And I woke up that morning realizing that, being like, this is what's going on with you. You don't feel confident. And why not? You're a catch, but you're not acting like a catch. You're acting like a psychopath. I said to myself, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is not you. You're funny. You're easygoing. You're confident. What the fuck are you doing? And this is not the first time this had happened. I had had a few arguments with him before like that, where I'd gotten not to that extent, but I had gotten a little bit up there, and he would have always been like, okay, let me talk to you. Like, not really gone that much out of his way to soothe me, but definitely given me attention. This was the first time that he didn't do that. Him setting that boundary with how he was going to be spoken to, him approaching me with love, but also not letting himself get dysregulated by how extraordinarily dysregulated I was one of the best things that's ever happened to me in general, but also in our relationship. I don't think he would say this because I don't think this is what he is actually thinking, but as a therapist, I'm interpreting it. It felt like he trusted me to take care of myself. He didn't buy into, because I was actually okay, right? Like, nothing was happening to me. I was safe. I was fine. We were fine. Like, objectively, I was absolutely fine. It was just all of these insecurities that were bubbling up and just cascading all over him. And he didn't take it. He didn't judge me. He didn't insult me or yell at me, make me feel bad. But he did set a boundary to say, I'm not going to be spoken to like that. I'm going to enjoy my night. I'm really having a hard time doing that if you keep phoning me every 5 seconds. Right? Fair point. I had so much respect for my now husband, then boyfriend, for doing that, for having those amazing boundaries, for knowing what he deserved and not putting up with less than that. I had so much respect for him in that moment. I felt so happy to be with somebody like that. Somebody so stable, so confident, so self-assured of their own experiences. I felt so safe which is such a crazy thing to say after that kind of night, but it was true. He was an unshakable pillar, and I had never experienced that before. It was wonderful. And at the same time, I felt like I desperately wanted to feel that same level of respect for myself. I didn't feel that for myself, and I did not like that. I do like feeling very respectful of myself, like that I respect myself, that I like the way I show up. I like feeling like that, and I didn't feel like that in the moment. And that experience was life-changing to me, and I'm still so grateful for my husband, and it's still something I look up to in him, that he can do that. Anyway, that's my oversharing story. Maybe you can go ahead and overshare with me too if you want to. So in summary for our session, I do that every time. Oh my gosh. In summary for our podcast, boundaries are an act of trust and love towards yourself and towards others. Okay? This week, I invite you to go and try practice one small no or one small calendar block, something just for you, some little boundary just for you. Practice with love and trust in yourself. See how you feel. As usual, it is amazing to talk to you. I will see you next week, Thursday. Welcome home.